I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz.
Today, in Outer Wilds August, we are talking about leaving home.
Housekeeping.
I mean, yes, you should probably clean your house sometimes. I don't know if that's a prerequisite before you, leave the house to, go grocery shopping or anything.
But the house we're talking about today was developed by Mobius Digital and published by Annapurna Interactive.
Yeah, and we'll be discussing, the game, and we will be talking about spoilers, and this game is, the game that people say you want to go in without spoilers, so you have been warned. Go play the game! It's on Steam, it's on Switch, it's on the Epic Game Store if you use that. So, when we talk about leaving home, first we have to have a home, and that home is the village on Timberhearth. We've talked several times about how nice Timberhearth, feels, right?
Oh yeah.
It definitely has, the air of home, even when you just first arrive and look at it in the rising sunlight,
Well, it's the only Earth-like planet in the Outer Wilds solar system. So, of course, it feels like home to us.
The entire planet is a patch of habitability rather than just the small ones you get everywhere else.
Of course, you don't really understand that part of the scope of the game when you just get started, but there's a lot of people in the village who are very excited for you because you're leaving. There's the kind of this culture about it. There's a culture about space exploration, and you're incredibly excited to go into space and test out the Nomai translator device. You've been training since childhood for this.
And thinking about it, after last time I spent a lot of time on Timberhearth, you can see the whole solar system in the sky of Timberhearth. So, a natural curiosity about what's out there and what it all means and need to explore definitely makes sense, even if not everybody on Timberhearth wants to leave Timberhearth. The drive to explore it, I mean, yeah, it's right there.
So much more tangible than our real world.
It's you might look at the moon and think, I wish I could just, walk all over that thing. And imagine just a whole solar system's worth of bodies that you can just see out there, and...
Yeah, through the quirk of, video game physics, you can see it when the sun's out. All of them.
Yeah, I mean, if they're about as big in the sky as, the moon is for us, I can see that kind of stretch in logic.
So yeah, a comfy home with a sky full of possibilities.
And so, in many stories, leaving home is inherent. It is the symbolization of, stepping out of your comfort zone. I want to give a brief shout out to Overly Sarcastic Productions because I have watched, all the trope talks, and as such, phrasing a tutorial in a video game kind of like this is heavily inspired by them. Go check them out. I think that this really exemplifies the stepping out of your comfort zone, the establishing your status quo as to what you're leaving behind and why you're doing that. It is a beautiful way of showing that.
I haven't seen that one, so maybe somebody will link it in the description for me, too.
I'm gonna have to, write the note now, Okay, there we go. It should be in the description now. So, when it comes to leaving home and leaving Timberhearth, typically, just from a brief look at everything above you, you typically, latch on to at least one thing that seems, super exciting to visit.
If you've even bothered to really look up, because there's so much to do on there. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
Because having a immediately revisitable tutorial that physically teaches you all the elements you're going to need for the game Chef's kiss again. Just another thing. Outer Wilds does amazing.
It's like, yeah, since the Hearthians are very enthusiastic about their space program, even if not everybody's, all lining up to participate, they have lots of, demonstrations of the tools you'll actually be using in space set up.
I think the only thing they don't really prepare you for is, high gravity.
Yeah.
Because, they've got a tutorial for ghost matter, they got a tutorial for quantum, they got a tutorial for,
scout usage and
zero gravity and the jetpack.
And making repairs and all that. Getting ready. Getting your skills all matched up so you're ready to face anything. Almost.
There are things out there that nothing will prepare you to face.
Whoa, just like real life!
And out there are mysteries, which is another drive to go. What's out there? That's the biggest. It's like, what's it like to go to space? What's it like to land on another planet? How long is it going to take me to walk around the moon?
And, most people's, very early in their Outer Wilds journey, they get the question of, what can I do without a spaceship? Pretty important questions that we all eventually have to ask.
The lovely run ender where you forget to put your suit on.
Yeah, somebody out there first time must have thought it was a good idea to leave their spaceship in orbit or something.
Really? Can you do that?
I imagine you probably can.
I mean, it's a thing you can try.
Stretch goals.
Do I need to put up the decaying orbit poster again?
If you want to, you worked hard on that.
But if you have any ridiculous spaceship mishaps like that one, a potential one, feel free to share if they aren't too embarrassing.
But something that kind of happens, very soon after you leave is that Timber Hearth starts looking a little small, The village, it's tiny. This is a tiny, tiny village.
You see the whole thing of it during that tutorial.
That is where you grew up.
It's like, if you just want to talk about in terms of blunt gameplay, exactly why you'll want to leave home is because the rest of the content's outside. And you're supposed to just wrap up most of the heavy hitters right away.
So now that you're out there,
your perspective has changed. Not just in the way of it looking small, but in some ways the problems are small too. In general senses, like how's the harvest going seems small in the grand scape of the universe, or if I were to theoretically burn down the launch pad, it's not going to matter in 22 minutes if you want to step aside into the time loop part of it.
But you find celestial concerns once you're seeing everything on celestial level. You're thinking about maybe even the fate of the interloper at some point. You're, as well as the whole fall of two entire civilizations.
Well, honestly, 3 if you count your own and the DLC.
I wouldn't count the Hearthians as a fall of a civilization because all evidence of the civilization is erased at the same time.
They get prematurely terminated.
Yeah, but so do the Nomai.
Yeah.
The eradication of a civilization.
It's so much of the stuff you go investigating isn't about Hearthians at all. It predates them by a significant amount of time.
So the scope and scale of what you're thinking about doesn't even fit back on home. It's going to be hard to talk about these things with people who've never left.
Yeah, we jokingly talked about before this, what if you could actually try to get more people in on what you're experiencing on this journey, and joked that it would take 22 minutes.
And by other people, you mean other Hearthians.
Yeah, other Hearthians, yeah. And then, by then the sun would explode and it'd just not be worth it. And, yeah, I still find that hilarious.
And one thing I noticed when I was playing for the first time, it really made me think about this as a possible podcast episode topic back when I played last year, was talking to all of the travelers in their home bases, wherever they are. None of them talked about going home.
Yeah, like, for example, with Feldspar, you have to mention, hey, do you want me to get you help? And they're like, well, I mean, I guess, sure. You know, if it's convenient.
Which,
it is Dark Bramble. Make sure you're prepared to handle that before you attempt a rescue mission in there.
I mean, can you imagine Dark Bramble without time loops?
Yeah.
I mean, we can, but I don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I realize I'm making too much out of what was just a video game mechanic, and just you need these people to be in their specific spaces so you can learn more about Hearthians and about the planets that they're on and have a little bit of camaraderie and a reminder of home through the travelers. Now that they're in space, there's not a real drive to go back. And the one that's most striking for me was talking to Esker. Esker is lonely as hell up there on the moon. Doesn't ask for a ride back to Timberhearth.
Yeah, if anything, they just want more spaceships to launch.
They want visitors, but they don't want to go home. And again, that's just game stuff.
Yeah, but Outer Wilds isn't about its mechanics.
Which is, like, really weird to say when it's a space exploration game.
That has so many amazing mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, at no point am I thinking, okay, like, which part of my weapon arsenal do I need to use for this at this particular moment? Am I going to be able to climb up on that ledge?
No,
Where are my health pickups?
Well, there is one on your ship. You can pick that up anytime you want.
If you can return to ship.
Yeah.
Bye, ship.
There it goes into the sun again.
Or there it goes off into the ocean. There it goes off into space.
There's so many fates that can befall that little clunker.
Adorable little clunker. So that's the thing about leaving home is you grow. And when you grow, you don't fit right back into where you came from anymore. You bring that growth back with you. So if the game continued on and didn't end in 22 minutes, our hatchling protagonists would have to find where they fit in Hearthian society again.
Not an easy feat, but can be done. Could coach the next generation of astronauts or catalog everything that they've recorded about, like, Know My Society or things like that. It's possible.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying it necessarily would be a struggle because their culture is so supportive of what they're doing. But for so many people, some of what they're driven to leave home for is the feeling of not being accepted for the very things that you want to explore.
See, it's the kind of thing where if you don't know what you're going into, you can't know what you're going into when you leave home. You certainly don't know what it's going to be like coming back afterwards.
A lot of things can change when you're gone, even for short periods of time, depending on, where you live, real world examples. I don't know, maybe somebody's chicken runs away and never comes back. It'd be different coming back and there's not that chicken there anymore.
That's definitely an example you could have. Yes.
Well, if it's a chicken, I don't know, maybe it's notorious and you're kind of lucky it's not there when you get back.
The notorious chicken. Why was that my example?
I have no idea, but I have no desire to be you. I'm just happy to witness you and let you be yourself.
I guess it was just something that wasn't, like, entirely tragic. I don't know how dark we want to go. Somebody's chicken running away is
Somebody
so
could have got a different job. They could have repainted their house. There are lots of neutral examples that don't involve you being attached to other people's chickens. I'm just saying, you know how tragic chicken life can be, so I don't know. You're the one who was leaning in to go dark. I don't know that that's necessarily it. I was thinking more along the lines of people go away to college and they come home with new political ideologies, and then their families' dinners get a little bit more tense. Stuff like that.
Yeah, you have to go out there and, you have to try to explain communism to everybody. You have to deal with the fact that, you're gonna want to go back out there again, even if you've come home now.
Your little cousin's no longer short enough to be used as a headrest.
And they're not into Pokemon anymore.
That is a travesty.
Okay, yes.
I can't believe you went there. This is why we need to stick with my chicken examples.
You act like you've forgotten how tasty chicken is. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But when you leave home, you get to have all kinds of new exciting experiences, like new foods, and meet new people. Of course, not in Outer Wilds. In Outer Wilds, you only get to eat marshmallows.
But you get to eat soggy marshmallows on Giant's Deep. That's new and exciting.
And if you time it just right, you can have a sun-crisp marshmallow, because the Nova explosion will roast your marshmallow for you. You have very nuanced timing to eat it, but
honestly, it's like if you could do that anywhere, though, it's like, wonder what if you could get a toast going and you just like stick it out at the sun station.
Oh, that would be a really fun detail if you could.
Well, I mean, as the developers even talked about when the game was at GDQ last time, there are mods.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see?
Well, if we need to find something that's a topic to potentially research in each episode, there we go. The Roast Marshmallows Anywhere mod. Does that exist? I know there's one for tweaking the anglerfish behavior.
Ooh.
Just get a menu to customize it.
Fascinating. Terrifying.
Maybe.
Anglerfish Everywhere mod.
I didn't say that!
Is that a star? Is it an anglerfish?
Okay. For someone who complained about the horror elements of this game, really, leaving home, you find out how truly dangerous and unforgiving the universe really is. The universe does not give a lick about you. You are so vulnerable. Anyone who's tried to land anywhere, except for that one guy, knows that you could crash, you could lose your ship, you could lose your ability to go anywhere, and unless you can get someplace near a tree, your 22 minutes might get cut short.
And, it's nice to see that it's not just you. Not all the travelers, but most of the travelers have a problem like you do. So, Chert has managed to keep their ship safe. But Gabros is lost at sea. Rybex is a long walk across the surface, and they're too scared to go back over there. Feldspar's is...
Yeah, the electrical disturbances coming from Feldspar's ship will deflect your scout if you try and shoot it at it.
It is irreparable. Inoperable.
If you try and fix it, you will be broken too.
I know it's outside the scope of the game, but really the best solution at that point probably would have been just to take Feldspar into your ship with you, because they small, they fit. They just wouldn't have a seat.
Yeah, but do they really want to leave? Do they?
We don't know. That would be, of all of them, I don't know. I was going to say of all of them, Feldspar would be the least likely, but after what Feldspar's been through, I don't know. I think Gabbro now takes the crown as the one least likely to go home. or the least likely to care either way, honestly.
It's like, Giant's Deep doesn't give a crap, and neither do I.
And then, as a help for leaving home, one of the things that I like that they do is they do give you a comrade in arms who can recognize your experience.
Yeah, I do kind of wish you could talk to them about, like, your plan to reactivate the vessel, but it'd be a lot of programming to, like, make sure that the player understands that this is an option and, like, you visited enough stuff, blah, 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 blah.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
We can have headcanon, whatever stuff, and that's really fun.
Yeah, because, like, part of why I think this is because this is, like, the one thing you can do that can screw Gabbro over. Because once you remove that core, you know, not just you is mortal again, but Gabbro is also mortal again. And
Yeah.
it feels weird to do that without having a conversation.
But also, just that existence is referred to as a living horror. Like, they wouldn't want to inflict on anyone.
But honestly, all that I think Gabbro would probably have to say about it is, like, don't tell me which loop. Like, don't tell me which one will be the last one.
If you see me, it's not. Because I'm not coming to Giant's Deep last loop. I ain't gonna do it. Getting out of here again is too much a pain in the butt, and there's no guarantees I'm gonna be able to make it.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea when you're gonna get hit by a flying island.
And this is exactly the kind of stuff that is way too big of concerns for a tiny town in the middle of the cosmic nowhere.
It's like, you'd never consider what might happen if an entire island fell on you. That's not a problem your typical Hearthian on their home world has to deal with.
In fact, they just recently probably found out that the islands on Giant's Deep even can do that. Because they could only see it from space before.
I believe you can't actually see this in-game because of, technical limitations, render distances. If you stared at Giant's Deep with a telescope long enough, you would definitely be able to see the islands break the atmosphere. Maybe
Maybe they just didn't know what it was for a while, and then, like, Feldspar goes, and it's just like, so there are islands and an ocean, and I'm gonna go to the bottom of the ocean. See ya!
Interesting. I would have assumed it was volcanic in there.
Yeah, or maybe those were giant beasts that live in the clouds, and they break the cloud cover. It depends on... I have no idea what the Arthian imagination looks like. We're not exposed to their fiction. That's outside the scope and scale of the game.
Yeah, we're only here for the facts.
So, I'm going to circle back to the perspective change, as this is a noted thing that happens to people. Didn't seem to happen to the billionaires, but when people are astronauts and you go to space, it changes your whole perspective on how you feel about living on Earth. It gives you a new respect for your home, and you realize how precious life is and how precious your planet is. They did a whole Netflix series interviewing astronauts talking about this effect. And I find that a good metaphor for just leaving home in general. Is that while you're out, you gain perspective, and then you can use that for whatever you use that for. Then again, leaving home that way doesn't necessarily mean that you're want to go back.
Yeah, though, like, speaking of, like, astronauts having, like, such distinct experiences from Earth, it just reminds me of interviews after people who've lived on the International Space Station come back, and they just keep dropping stuff all the time.
They try to set it down in midair because, when you don't have to contend with gravity.
Yeah, so then they also, like, when they're trying to find what they let go of, they look up, trying to see where it floated away to.
It's kind of like... I don't know if you remember that scene where Tim Allen's character is asking the aliens to help him find his shoes in Galaxy Quest, and they're looking on the ceiling.
I don't think I knew that was Tim Allen.
Okay.
I was young enough watching that movie that these are just people.
And then you got me thinking, am I wrong?
You would know more than me.
But anyway, just, yeah, that's a common phenomenon. And so perspective is a thing you gain, and you gain access to knowledge. Like, Zach, but like you were saying when we were getting ready to do this episode.
So yeah, as I was trying to think about what to talk about with the episode, it's like, yeah, I had this sort of thread of leaving home, you're sacrificing something, you're giving something up, but it's like, the best way to describe what you're leaving behind is ignorance.
You can't keep alive in the same way a naive version of your childhood. You're gonna see your own circumstances with a lot more clarity than you could when you were living at home.
It's like, yeah, much how you need external observation in order to, observe the fact that your home world is not the center of the universe. It's not the center of gravity.
What do you mean it's not the most... My home's not the most important thing.
I think for a lot of people, this kind of awakening, starts when you first start going to school,
Mm-hmm.
And, not necessarily, okay, one of the examples I'm thinking about is, maybe hearing about, how much TV somebody gets to watch. I think that could cause a lot of jealousy in some cases. Or, what kind of food do you get?
Oh, realizing that every family has its own culture and that not everybody has the same rules at home, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you hung out a lot with your neighbors and had a lot of family and went to lots of different households, you might have an idea, but going to school gives you this whole blanket of strangers who's, and travel does that even more so.
But it's like, when you think of, heading out into the greater solar system or just stepping out into the world at large, it's like, let's see, if you don't know how big it's gonna be out there, it's like, even if you know how big it's gonna be out there, you don't know what that's going to mean until you're in it.
And sometimes you might not even know what it means until that stops again.
Oh man. One example I could have is, on the trip I had to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
I was very jet-lagged when we got there, and we went to stop at a restaurant, me and the person I was traveling with, and we got some... Oh geez, what's it called? What's the deep fried shrimp called?
Tempura?
Tempura! Yes, we got tempura. And I was so sleepy that I was just staring at the plate when it arrived. And so this waitress sees me, this jet-lagged tourist, and puts the chopsticks in my hand, has me scoop it up with the chopsticks, makes me dip it in the sauce, and then carefully holds my hand while I take a bite.
I did not know this story.
So this is something that they do in Japan. They want to make sure that tourists aren't committing social faux pas, and they will go to extreme lengths to make sure that you're not being rude in public to an extent that is very, very weird as an American. It was very good tempura. Your expressions are priceless hearing this story. I clearly have not told that one enough.
No, you have not. But that's okay.
The fact that I've never heard this one is evidence enough that you don't tell it enough.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of my prime example ones for just how different cultures can be.
Just people who have never traveled have no idea how different culture can be in different places. And if you travel and you only stay in touristy spots, you're not going to experience that as much. And then now you know that different people do things very differently, and they think about things very differently.
Yeah, so in Japan, you get your behavior corrected gently. In Costa Rica, you get robbed.
No, don't.
come on, there was a ton more that happened in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
There was, and let's not pick on the Ticos, okay?
Yeah.
Part of the reasons that happens is because of, us.
Yeah.
So
I'm just speaking from what we've experienced, not trying to.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have you uncolonize that a little bit. So.
Well, whatever happened, I hope that Game Boy Advance served them well.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath. Just saying. Rest in peace, WarioWare.
Rest in peace, WarioWare. Forever not beaten the final boss.
Yeah, this leads into a whole tangent. It's like, yeah, it wouldn't be the end for WarioWare there if somebody would just let us play it. I know it's in the vault somewhere. It can just be re-released at practically any time. One of the benefits of leaving home is you've got at least more things to rant about than just the fact that Nintendo is refusing to resell you
something you've previously owned. Yes, okay. I'm reassuring pats.
This is such an episode.
Yeah, we're having an episode, all right.
So this is how much perspective has changed from leaving home, even for like vacations, even for more mundane stepping outsides.
And if you really do go and do something as dramatic as go to space, go to college, leave home or whatever, the growth you have changes you, and that's a sacrifice that you have to give up who you were, how you thought about things, and the limited perspective that you used to have. I mean, you don't have to. Some people are adamantly resistant to it growing at all, and that works, air quotes, works for them.
Yeah, more power to them.
No.
Less power to them.
Oh god. I hope you do you over there. Is how I feel about a lot of that. You find out that some things are the same no matter where you go, and in some ways it's like, oh wow, home's not so bad.
Like everywhere I've gone, people have like walked. I've seen a lot of walking people. Not everybody walks, but it's a pretty common experience.
Yeah, we certainly went places this episode.
I would say that the sacrifice of your ignorance, the discomfort of leaving your comfort zone, is in general a net positive.
It's like when you're in the midst of it, it feels like it's everything. It's so easy to think when you're down on Earth that everything revolves around it, but you set foot on another planet and you get the same sort of thing starts to happen there too.
That sky becomes the new sky. That day becomes the new day. Your local culture becomes your local culture.
There are so many other places that are the center of themselves.
As, places kind of have to be, because they don't move. That's the whole point of being a place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, relatively speaking.
Unless you're an island on Giant's Deep, right? But you're still on Giant's Deep.
Yeah, I mean, and the tree stays in the same place on the island. It's just that the island is not stationary.
Means it's not quantum.
Anyway.
I don't know if we're ever going to do that episode.
That sounds like something that we would all have very, very different definitions of.
I think so.
This has been Collab Not Multiplayer. I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I'm Sackbot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleclex.